questions. My name is Sandy Ratliff. I'm with Virginia Community Capital, and I'm one of the partners in this series. If you're not familiar with Virginia Community Capital, we are a nonprofit community development financial institution providing financing, investing, and community innovation services. I'm happy to be a partner in this program with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, and the town of Abington. It's hard to believe that we've been doing this since 2014 to support our Washington County Business Challenge, by the way, is coming up in January. But we've been providing this series to help businesses as they get started and to grow, to access the resources and training that they need to be successful, not only in Washington County, but now throughout the Commonwealth. Today's session will be recorded for training and education purposes, and just to keep everything secure and safe with nobody coming and interrupting anything from the crazies. We do have everyone muted. However, we want to hear from you. If you have a question for our presenter today, please post those in the Q&A section, and we will address those at the end of the session. After today's workshop, this recording will be posted on the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator's Facebook page and the New Knowledge series on YouTube. And if you've not been there, that's a great resource for you to access all of these that we've held over the last few years. It's my pleasure to turn it over and introduce my co-host today, Kathy Lowe with Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator. And Kathy, can you take over and introduce our presenter?
I can introduce our presenter. Our presenter is Rachel Lewis, and Rachel is the owner of Moxie Strategies, and Rachel has been in the marketing industry since she graduated from college, and I've known Rachel since she was in elementary school, and we're excited to have her here today. Sandy, I think if you could text her the phone number, I don't think she can find the audio. She is logged in so that she can screen share, but if you'll text her the phone number for her to call in with her phone, I guess that's what she needs now. We're sorry for the technical difficulties. Sometimes internet is spotty in certain places, and Rachel happens to be in one of those spotty areas. So we are sorry for the technical difficulties, but we hope to get started quickly. Rachel?
Okay. Sorry. I don't know if we want to start the recording again or not, but to everyone, I am so sorry. I just did not have apparently the right between the meeting ID, the participant ID, and anyways, all my bad. But I'm so glad that you guys are here. I'm very excited to be doing this, and let's just go straight into things with no more ado.
And you
first,
can share your screen now.
Let me know. Okay, yep, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, there we go. And get it into sorry, deal with me just a bit here because I normally do prezzies. What am I doing wrong here?
You just need to click over here on slide number 1, and I think you'll just have to manually click on each slide on the left.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay. I was just literally doing this. Okay. So let's just start out with what is the topic of today's presentation? Targeting.
Rachel, if you'll look on the bottom of your screen, it looks like a TV monitor on the
what
main.
am I doing wrong? Oh, whoa.
On
Yes,
over.
Sorry.
On over.
It's been a while
On
since
over.
I've done
On over.
PowerPoint. Sorry about that.
No, you need to go ahead.
Over here. Oh, yeah.
That one.
There we go. Ta-da. All right. Finally. Sorry, guys. Okay. So I was apologizing. I typically use a presentation platform called Prezi, but it has a lot of movement in it, and I know everybody's coming in at this with different bandwidth, so I wanted to do something a little bit more static, but I promise we'll keep it interesting. My name is Rachel Lewis. I'm originally from Abingdon, Virginia, Appalachia, born and raised, yes. But I have been doing marketing for almost 20 years now, and mostly in the DC area. So I hope you'll be excited because we're about to go on an adventure. I don't want you to be scared just because I said I've worked in DC for a long time. The thing is, I've worked mostly with nonprofits. And here's the thing. Everyone's got constricted budgets, and I know it's marketing can be intimidating, but I want to tell you, first of all, these two ladies here, Kathy and Sandy, you got to trust them. They really know what they're doing. So let's just do an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. First of all, targeting. It's one aspect of a larger plan. Okay? Secondly, how to target. Key to good targeting is stepping outside of yourself, which many of you may think you know how to do, but it's a good chance you don't. So we're going to go over how to do that. And then we're going to get into the nitty gritty, do some practical stuff. But before we get going, hold on a second. Before we get going, let me just say I have a couple of images here of some folks, and I'm curious if any of you all identify with any of these people. This guy. Oh, boy. Here we are doing another online webinar. Gosh, I'm going to pretend I'm excited about this, but not so much. Oh, we have the reluctant and passionate business owners, or maybe you are heading up a nonprofit and there's something you're really passionate about, but it definitely isn't marketing. So you're sitting here going, oh, I hope, I'm trying. I hope I can make it through this. Yeah, so if this is you, don't be scared. We're going to do this together. It's going to be great. Okay, a little bit about me. So like I said, I'm born and raised here in Southwestern Virginia. I went to the College of William and Mary for undergrad, studied public policy because it was the closest I could come to not making a decision about my life. Interested by a lot of different things. I worked on the Hill for a pretty influential politician, landed that job by doing a presentation for a government class. Very random, but I did a whirlwind tour of on the Hill, government, as the director of outreach for a nonprofit. I realized at a certain point, if I was going to stay in policy, maybe I should focus on one thing. Again, not my strength. So I said, what's something that every cause that I care about needs help with? And it was communication. Because here's the deal, people. In a single day, there is more information published online than there has been published in the entire history of humanity. That is what we're dealing with, right? So you may have your passions. You really just want to do what you're best at doing, making fly fishing rods or cooking or, picking out new fashions. Maybe there's some legislation. You're working on a nonprofit. all you're thinking about is how to advance that agenda. And this kind of stuff that you have to do, it's frustrating. Ugh. Well, here's the thing about me. So I went on to spend most of the remaining time that I had in DC after I got my master's from Georgetown in communications and marketing, helping people with limited resources. And small businesses really fall into that category. Let me tell you, I'm a big fan of small businesses. So I understand from Sandy that we may have folks that are coming into this from different levels of organizations. You may be nonprofit, you may be for-profit, et cetera. But here's the cool thing that I learned with a lot of my studies at Georgetown. You have a logical framework that you apply. Targeting is a part of that logical framework. You use this logical framework because you don't have money or time to waste, right? What I want to talk to you about today is how to avoid what I call bright, shiny object syndrome, right? It's about thinking through things and making decisions. So if you're going to invest your time to learn how to do X, we got to make sure X is going to get you to where you want. And when it comes to targeting, what we got to figure out is if we're trying to get to X, how are we going to get there? So why do we target? Well, surprise me. Let me know. Is anyone here at Walmart? Probably not. Do you have a multi-million-dollar TV ad budget where you can bombard the airways with, these ads really get me, but with sad puppies and please, you've got to send us $19 a month now. Okay, probably not. Or let's see, are you Zappos? Anyone here with Zappos? Kind of didn't think so. So this is part of why we target. Now you guys have probably heard about the long tail, and Sandy, Kathy, text me, chat me if any of this is not pulling up well in terms of the graphics. But what I'd like to show you right now is something that Chris Anderson came out with, like probably 15 years ago, right? So if you think about doing a search on, on Google, right? We're going to do search for shoes. And what we're going to come up with when we do that search is millions upon millions upon millions of results, as you'll see. This represents this part of what we call the long tail. Now, see, the long tail is really a part of what is actually considered the bell curve, right? Now, if you're a business, typically you're only going to shelf those things that sell particularly well because you're paying to rent the space and you can't do as many obscure things, right? But it's pretty difficult to compete with this many results. So with the advent of the internet, all of a sudden you can do something like best shoes to hike the Appalachian Trail with. And now look at what we're competing with. Dramatically different, right? So there's the internet aspect of targeting. But I would also argue, and this is just my personal standpoint, that in the modern day big box store world, we're getting to a point where even if you can't compete with the Walmart and the Amazon seemingly in terms of shipping or other things like that, what you might be able to do is gain my trust and curate something. Because I'm guessing a lot of you all have had this experience where you go to search for something on Amazon and reading the reviews, and they're confusing. One person says it's the greatest thing ever. The next person says it's terrible. And all of a sudden, you're spending a lot more time going through all of these results. And oh yeah, half of the results aren't even about products that you're looking for. Does that happen to you? Or you go into Walmart and you are overwhelmed, and maybe you buy something that, in the end, it's not great quality. You're not that excited about it. So I think that we're reaching a point where there's real value in, whether it's online or offline, curating products, gaining trust of niche audiences so that when they need something, they know where to go. And we want that place to be you. By the way, this doesn't just apply to retail. This applies to even if you're a nonprofit, right? I mean, there's a host of information out there. This cause, that cause. You've got to pursue it this way or that way. And so people are looking for some clarity. But you all only deliver them clarity if you have thought through how to target them. So I'm going to tell you a little story. Probably 15, 16 years ago, I ran into an old friend of mine from William and Mary, and he was playing at this music venue. And now, granted, he was a public interest lawyer by the day, but he wanted to be a rock star at night. And so I agreed to be his manager. We made a trip up to New York City to play the show. I hustled. I got us into Times Square, which back in the day, it was running about $40,000 an hour to record in Times Square. I got this crazy idea. Okay, we're going to take this raft, because he was doing this song about Siddhartha on his raft. It's a note to this Herman Hesse book. Anyways, that's not important. But the idea with this video was we're going to do a raft in the middle of Times Square. And this is post 9/11, so, I wasn't exactly sure how this was going to go. So we're blowing up the raft, and sure enough, within less than 2 minutes, a police officer walks over and he says, "Hey there, what you doing? Shooting a music video or something?" And I had a clipboard in my hand, and I said, "No, I'm doing a sociology experiment where I'm going to see how many random strangers will get into this raft." And he says, "Okay." And I didn't know if he meant, "Okay, now I'm going to go call the squadron," or "Okay, you do that." Well, lucky for us, it was okay. And so we shot this great music video. We were using hyperlapse, all of this stuff that way before it was being used. It was super high quality, just vivid colors, wonderful, right? Well, I did all this for free, kind of for the fun of it. Maybe got paid just a little bit for it. But it comes time for this album to come out, and this friend had spent $20,000 on this album with this amazing producer, and it just sounded so great. But he had no budget left for marketing. So the picture that you see right here in this slideshow, this is just with a few of the CDs that both he and I, for many years, lugged around in the trunk of our cars. When I moved, I had to move these CDs with me because he spent a lot of money doing what he was passionate about, which was music. But he had nothing left to get that music into people's ears. And so what I will tell you today is you want to target, you want to pay attention to this stuff because you are producing something that you're really passionate about. But it will not matter if it does not reach the right people and in a way that will have an impact. Okay, so getting back to targeting being a part of something larger. All good organizations, causes, campaigns, products, services solve a problem, right? So what I want you to think about just briefly right now is, what problem are you solving, and who are you solving that problem for? And while you do that, I have to run and grab something really quick. I will be right back. Okay, so hopefully you have an answer to that in your mind now. I just want to say, a goal is the result or desired outcome that solves a problem, takes advantage of an opportunity, or meets a challenge, right? Now, how do we know what we're going to reach our goal? And sorry, for a lot of you, I'm sure this is really basic, so I'll go through this pretty quickly, but this is extremely important. Objectives, right? Objectives are those mile markers that tell us we're getting closer to our goal. We have to have them, because otherwise, why are we doing what we're doing, right? So good objectives, of course, are smart. And once you have your objectives, then you want to ask yourself, what sets of people or targets will I need to achieve these objectives? Okay? So let's go with a really simple example. Let's say that you're really into making pastries. You're the master of fondant. This is your passion. So what's one obvious way to know if you are moving closer to your goal? Well, I'm going to tell you what it isn't. It isn't how many followers you have. It isn't how nice your website is. It's how many cakes you're selling, right? So you have been reading wedding magazines since you were a little girl, and you just really think you have this in the bag. You love it. You're passionate about it. But what I want to ask you is, have you done your competitive research? Do you know who else is selling wedding cakes? And can you just break into that? Or do you need to think things through a little bit? Let's think it through. All right, that's what this girl is doing right here. Because what if there are already a couple of established caterers that are really rocking it with, they've got relationships with event planners. They've been doing it for years. Their search results always come to the top. Don't set yourself up for failure. Think about who else needs cakes. Maybe it's busy moms. Busy moms that don't have time, that want to do something really special for their kids, but they just don't have time, right? Sorry, brief interlude. This is my dog. Sit, Goose. Thank you. Okay, so now we know about moms, and we're thinking, okay, that's great. Well, a mom. So what do we want to make sure that we do? Well, first of all, let's think, where do moms get their information from? Which moms are we talking about? Probably not talking about stay-at-home moms. We're talking about moms with jobs. Where, as I said, where do they get their information from? What time do they look? And to do this kind of thing, you're going to start having to not think about yourself and the next cake flavor icing that you're going to do necessarily, but about you've got to live in your target market's shoes. So one thing I've noticed with a lot of businesses around here with myself is the hours. I can't go and buy plants at a landscaping business that closes at 5 o'clock. I'm usually just not available then. And I want to buy plants. I love plants. But if that landscaping business was thinking from the perspective of their target market, maybe their target market is they work mostly with, construction managers. And then I would say, well, why are you wasting this time on this retail space and presenting yourself as a retail business when basically you're just disappointing people a lot with every time they come by? But when I say be in the shoes of your buyer persona, that's thinking through, and we're understanding, okay, it's not the grandma that probably will be buying your cake. It's not the dad because he's not on top of this stuff. Yes, it's the busy mom, and we're going to give her a name, and we're going to talk about her affinities. So on Facebook, you can do a lot of targeting. You can target by age. You can look up people who have already liked, let's say, a particular magazine. Is it a Garden and Gun? What do you think it might be? So this is what I'm saying with targeting. You have to live in that space. You also really have to divorce yourself from what it is that you already know. A great example of this, I'm going down the street and I see a sign up. See all these lights. I see this sign that's kind of been put up, something about a holiday thing. Now the person that made that sign, they know what their business is because they go there every day. They know what their name is. But if I'm driving by in my car, I've got the radio on, I've got other things going on, and I'm having to squint to see that sign, it's not great, right? That person wasn't thinking from the perspective of their target. It's all about the user experience. And to really understand user experience, to understand what graphics will appeal, what messages and everything like that, you can't think the way you normally think every day. So I've worked with so many nonprofits that were filled with people who were super smart about policy, but they were what I would call a wonk. There's this inside the beltway thing that, everybody should know what HR 472 is. Well, everybody doesn't, because that isn't everybody's everyday world, right? So are you using jargon that other people won't understand? Think about this with your targeting. And your targeting is going to lead you to the right channels to use. You do not need to be on every single channel there is out there. It is so much better to do one or two things really well than to just spread yourself too thin. Now, insider tip I'm going to give you is there's an obvious target that a lot of people miss. And that is the people that are already along the progression with you, right? Maybe they've been in your store once. Maybe they've seen one of your posts on Instagram. Maybe they've liked something. Maybe they have bought a little small thing. These are the people that some work has already been done. You're already halfway there. If you've got an email list, did you know you can import that email list into your Facebook and target those people, right? That's an obvious one. You can also be collecting information as people come in. Talk to your customers and understand, once you've kind of developed a good target, make sure it's a good target. You got to test this stuff out. Nothing will substitute getting objective feedback from people, right? Because what often happens is what we think others think isn't what they think. The connotations that we may have with a certain word isn't necessarily what your target may have. So understand those people that are already in your orbit. Are you providing what they need? And don't just a quick tip is don't forget to target those people, because that's the low-hanging fruit you've got to go for. Now, I want to go over a couple of things before we get into questions and answers that just based on my experience, I want to share with you to try and help save you some grief. This is some snake oil I wouldn't suggest that you buy. First off, really expensive websites. Because here's a little tip with expensive websites. They are basically a guaranteed way. When someone builds code from scratch for you, that's a guaranteed way for them to have a job in the future. Because they've made something really complicated that you can't go in and fix yourself. So what you want to go for, unless you're an extremely complicated type of e-commerce business, you want to go for a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So we're talking about the WordPress types. There are already themes that exist out there where all you really need to do is just, maybe you want to change the font color or the font. Tweak this, add a little widget here. You don't have to start from scratch, and you do not have to spend a whole lot of money on it. Do not let anyone tell you that. Local search packages that aren't clear, go to the Better Business Bureau, okay? Check any offer that you get before you start clicking on links and doing all of this stuff or letting them talk you into giving your credit card and spending a lot of money. Make sure that there aren't a ton of complaints about their service. And also know that with some of these bigger package providers, you're not going to be able to call them up when you have a question. It's going to be hard to get a hold of someone on the phone. So just kind of know what you're getting into with that. Which gets me down to, well, let's see. Next point. So December's coming up. You got a little bit left in November. December comes up. Here's the thing. With a lot of social media advertising, you're going to be competing with all of the big retailers, box stores, that sort of thing. If you're a nonprofit, it's going to be hard because it's about sell. Facebook, Meta, whatever you want to call it, this is a big time to be making their money. So you're better off, especially with the shipping situation and stuff right now. Jump into it now. And if you have to do it, if you still feel like, this is just my main selling season, I'm going to have to suck it up, buy the ads no matter what, just consider doing something like a complimentary organic promotion along with it. And when I say organic, I'm happy to talk with anybody about this after the fact, but it's kind of ways that you can game the system a little bit to give your content a better chance, because content is how we're getting discovered, right? You can't just have a static website, Facebook page you never post to, and expect you're going to get traffic. It just doesn't work that way. In fact, after a certain period of time, a lot of these social media platforms, if you haven't posted, they just demote your reach algorithm, and you're going to have to put in a lot of effort to get that back up and going. And don't worry, you can do it, but if you try and pick something that makes sense for you and you're consistent with it, that's going to work the best. Now, a lot of you may feel you start on some of these platforms. Maybe someone said, well, you should really target young people, and you've done your research and you realize, oh, I'm supposed to be on TikTok. Well, you could be 60 years old and totally awesome on TikTok, but you could also not. Know your limits, and it's not just because your target is on TikTok does not mean that if you don't feel comfortable with doing that, that you have to be on TikTok. So maybe they're on TikTok, but where are they going after school? Do you know that? Is there a rec center? Is there a way you could partner and maybe do little sponsorship, something with some local sports teams? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you could reach young people, but my suggestion is first talk to a young person, understand more about them and where they're going and what's appealing to them. So last thing is don't get pushed over with a bunch of packages and things like you've got to select X, Y, and Z. A good consultant gets to know you. They understand, okay, it's just me, and I'm doing this by myself from, my dining room table 3 days a week. Or I'm this larger enterprise. I have X, Y, Z people on my team. This person's good with this. This person's great with that. But I can't rely on this person to do this. What makes sense for me? You've got to have someone who looks at your resources, understands your goal, and can help you figure out either how what I like to do is to help people make good decisions, train them up, and empower you to do it yourself. Now, I can do it for you. That's not a problem. But don't feel that if you don't have the budget to pay someone to be doing your social media management every month, that you're just not going to make it, because that's not the case. All right. And with that, I think I will go back to the snake oil thing here. I will take your questions. All right.
Let's see.
Okay.
While we're waiting for someone to have a question, I have a question. How do I determine if I'm a small business owner that I have very limited time, because I'm trying to do it all?
Uh-huh.
I have very limited resources. How do I determine what is the social platform that fits my specific needs?
Okay. Well, so what I think is a super quick workaround is to get out there and start having some conversations, right? Maybe you need to give away a couple of free cupcakes to do it. Maybe you need to bug your neighbor to talk to, so-and-so who is, you think your ideal target, and ask them, where are you? Where do you get your information from? So a great example for me is there is, now I'm forgetting the name of it, this town, in Abingdon specifically, it's called the Wolf Whistle. That is a newsletter. I'd never heard about it, but apparently a lot of people are on there. And so that's the kind of thing that you learn about only when you're having conversations, right? If you think about it, you may be getting a really biased view of a lot of the things that you see because targeting is happening all the time. So find someone that doesn't know anything about your business or organization and ask them to do a search for you. You may be surprised what turns up, because not all search results are the same. They're not all across the board. There's this thing called the knowledge graph, right? So this is something that you can do. It's 100% free. Yes, it's anecdotal, but I would say it's really, you'll be very surprised by the things that you can learn just by having those simple conversations, right? Maybe you put out a survey on your email list and include some incentive, to encourage people to actually take the survey. And you can use something called Google Forms. It's totally free, and you can set up survey questions, and it'll spit it into a spreadsheet, the answers for you. So that's what I would suggest doing. I mean, in addition to the obvious research of, tracking the industry and, latest number of app downloads and things like that. I mean, that's something that I kind of nerd out on, but it would be very easy to say, oh, it's definitely this platform across the board, but it may not be locally. And if you're dealing with something more locally, you could miss something just by relying solely on those national statistics.
And Rachel, you mentioned earlier about competing with the Walmarts and the Googles and so forth. How can a small business that does not have those kind of resources, I'm trying to think of, I think I saw Jennifer on here from Abington. I just went blank. Anyway, their business, they're having to compete. Wholesale Vital. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm having chemo brain today. But how can you compete with the Amazons when people are going with those outlets?
I would say, what is it, Jennifer, that and by the way, hi, Jennifer, that you offer that Walmart doesn't? I mean, for me, an obvious thing is time. Sorry, now I pulled it up to my website, which I had a little problem with this morning. But full disclosure, I've almost never used my website to get clients or business. So it's all about whether or not it's worth your time, right? So that's a perfect example of targeting. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on my website if I have another way to get clients. Do I need to have one? Yes. Do I need to make sure it's pointed to the right URL? Yes. But is it something I should be doing every day when I have a million other things to be doing? No, probably not. But to get back to the big box it seems overwhelming, right? It seems really overwhelming, especially if you think of like their purchasing power, etc. But I really do believe that an undervalued resource with all of the big box retailers is time. How often have you gone into Walmart and you have a question, you don't know which aisle this could be on, or you see something, but it's a big box, you're not sure how you're going to get it to the car, and you can't find anybody to talk to, right? So this gets back to USP, unique selling proposition. What makes you different? What problem can you solve that Walmart will never be able to? Because I'll tell you right now, Walmart is not going to solve the customer experience problem because they don't pay always well enough, and there's just too much going on. For some people, the trade-off is okay. They'd rather just have some super cheap stuff, and if they have to replace it but I think there are a lot of people that is not solving all of their problems right now. Maybe there's some stuff that you'll buy for cheap, but there's other stuff you have questions about. And so focus on that. What is your value added? What do you do that your competitors don't?
So Rachel, and that brings us to, we've got several people online that are apparently starting new businesses in different fields. We have someone who's starting a therapy office, a physical therapy office, and then I don't exactly know what the other new business is, but when you're talking about new business and you don't really know what your historical client has been, and you're in small town USA, how do those folks start out with a marketing plan?
Okay. Well, I think what is really, really central is going back to that goal. And when you think of a goal, it is a problem that you will solve. It's just a problem turned upside down. If you aren't solving a problem for someone, if you aren't meeting a need that's either not being met or is not being met in the way that people need it to be met, you're going to have a hard time, right? I hate to say this, but I'm sure this is something that Kathy and Sandy have been other presenters have talked about before, and it's just absolutely true. There's a lot of competition out there, and you just can't expect, I like to do this, or I'm trained to do this, and therefore I will be able to do this. It doesn't matter if there aren't people that need you to do that, or need to buy this, or are willing to. So let's say if you're a physical therapist, well, there are a lot of physical therapists that are already out here. I would start with, get on a computer, someone else's computer, that, the cookies have been erased. You're doing a fresh search, a fresh local search, and think about, if I was trying, let's pretend you're a physical therapist, but think about if you were trying to find a dentist and you didn't have a dentist in town. Go and look for a physical therapist the same way that you would look for a new dentist. And from that, you'll start to see, oh, okay, these are the people or the practices that are in place. What are the reviews looking like? Try searching for it in a different way. Do a search on Facebook. Do it on Google Maps. Do it on Firefox. Do it different places. Get your friends to do it. Get them to send you screenshots. You kind of see what is it that's pulling up, and you'll get a sense of, and then look at their websites, look at the reviews, and see what is it that they're offering. I mean, maybe one physical therapist practice is really focused on the elderly, but you want to be focused on sports-related injuries. Start digging down. Talk to the coaches of the local high schools around and say, what do you do when one of your athletes has an injury? That's the kind of digging and understanding. And as you do this, by the way, you'll start developing relationships, which will really be helpful for you when you launch your business.
Hey, Rachel, we're almost out of time, but I've got a question that I have wondered about, and it would probably maybe help some of the startups here, is how do you know how much time do I spend on the content or the writing posts, putting posts up on I'll just say Facebook, versus putting video content? Is there how much should I put on written and how much on video? For me, because of my small attention span, I like video. I like for you to tell me exactly what you want to say in the 60-second clip or whatever you put on there versus me having to take time to read it. Yes. So is there a...
Yes. And that's a great point. And that is definitely, I'm glad you point that out because, Sandy, that kind of goes back to what I was talking about with UX, user experience. Now, whatever you're talking about or doing a video about or product you're showing, you may really, really like, but that doesn't mean everyone else is going to like it quite as much as you do or be quite as passionate about it, okay? You usually just have a few seconds, really, even at that, before that scroll happens, right? Before someone's on to the next thing. And so, I would say you have Facebook Reels coming out. Instagram just got rid of Instagram TV. Doesn't mean that they're not going to do video anymore, but they're now doing kind of a different type of video. And there is more emphasis on either doing live or on that shorter type of content. There's also what we call ephemeral marketing, which is the idea of you've seen the stories, the stuff that you flip through, it doesn't stay there as long. You're trying to expand the advertising space. Because it's kind of a new thing, or, well, not really that new at this point, but still relative to like the traditional post, newsfeed, that sort of thing. The algorithms are favoring that some. So I think it's important to think about stories, those shorter pieces of content, but you've also got to follow your analytics. If you spend 2 hours doing a story and not that many people look at it, then you either, one, need to do a better story. Two, you need to have a complementary organic plan in place. And again, that's something that people reach out to me. It's, you can just, probably the easiest is just shoot me a text. If folks want to write down my phone number, it's 202-577-6856. That's the fastest way to reach me. And, we can talk because, unfortunately, because of what I call the content crisis, which has been going on for some time, there's just so much competition on most of these platforms that if you don't have that kind of complementary signaling, something that's going to tell Facebook, okay, wait, people are paying attention to this. Because, it's a big thing. A lot of you may know this, some not, but you can have 800 some fans on your Facebook page, and you do a post, and it might only reach or show up in the newsfeed of 23 of them. Because what Facebook does, and what a lot of these platforms do, is they release that content that you spend all this time making to just a handful of people, and they watch how it performs. If it's not getting the right kind of engagement, if the timing isn't right, if something isn't clicking, they're not going to send it out to the next wave, or the next wave, or the next wave. And there are all kinds of little tricks and things that you can kind of do to mess around with that. And I learned how to do this mostly because, nonprofits, I worked for several nonprofits that they just didn't want to do advertising at all. And so I had to have a way to make things get out there. And so that part of things is important. And the other thing I would say is native content. So you could post a YouTube link to Facebook, but think about it. Facebook is owned by Google, and Google doesn't want to be sharing traffic, and Facebook definitely doesn't want to be sharing traffic with YouTube. So that URL, that YouTube URL, you're going to get penalized for that. Video content is definitely very big right now, especially the shorter content, like you were saying, Sandy, which means you got to be precise. You really got to get that elevator pitch down and keep it focused to your messaging, like 3 things, okay? What are the 3 things that make you unique? People just don't have the space in their mind for a whole lot more than that. They just don't. So that's what I would say. So if you're going to be producing content, try and do it natively, directly posted to, not all of this cross-posting stuff, and don't want to see a ton of hashtags, you know, and stuff on Facebook. And again, maybe you don't even need to be on Facebook. I mean, probably you do, because that's kind of the big one. And they have the most data out there. It's best for targeting. But, you know, it could be that you putting up flyers or doing certain cross-promotional activities could be as effective as some of the social media stuff. It really just depends. And that's the kind of stuff I'm happy to, you know, chat with folks about more if they have questions.
Well, we're out of time, but Rachel, first of all, I want to thank you for your time and sharing your experience and some lessons learned with our viewers. Thank you for joining us, those online with us today. And I know you all have a busy schedule, and I hope you gathered some information that's going to help you. I just want to remind everybody today's session is being recorded and will be available up on the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator's Facebook page and on the YouTube channel for new knowledge. There's over probably getting close to 200 workshops that are available on demand on any kind of topic you can think of, and it's a great resource. I just want to say a plug for our next session, which will be on December the 8th. That will be focused on cybersecurity obligations and insurance. And it will be presented by Andrew Darlington Smith with Vertus Risk Management and Insurance. I hope you can join us. That is a very timely topic, considering we're talking a lot about online today. And you're going to keep that. If you're going to go on there and continue working with customers online, you need to make sure that you have security in place for your customers and for your business. Kathy, co-host, do you have anything else you want to say?
I don't. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you all for participating today. Rachel, the name of Rachel's business is Moxie Strategies. And Rachel, do you have a telephone number where you can be reached?
Oh, yeah. Let me do that phone number one more time. It's area code 202-577-6856. And I'll just do that one more time. 202-577-6856. You can also shoot me an email at RALEWISDC. That's Raw Lewis DC at gmail.com. And I have a couple of social media things up, and my website.
Rachel, what about is it on your PowerPoint? Or you could add a slide on your PowerPoint, and we can share everybody the slide, the PowerPoint, and a copy of the link for the video. So,
yeah, and I'm going to include another few links or two to just some what I think are kind of helpful free resources out there that with some SEO stuff and things like that might be good for folks. And like I said, I'm also on social media myself. I think I reactivated my Facebook page, but kind of when you do a lot of social media for other people, it's just I'm like the doctor who smokes cigarettes or something. I always follow my own advice. They don't necessarily follow me, but it's you can run into me in a couple other platforms, and I'll include that on that slide. And yeah, look forward to connecting with folks, and excited about, I mean, it's all about your energy and the entrepreneurship, and just it's important to just be focused in the way that you do it, and so that all your hard work and stuff will pay off. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Rachel.
everybody. Have happy holidays, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.